The tricky part about monogamy is that what we want is closeness and connection and warmth and friendship and security, but those things sometimes run counter to creating desire and attraction. Hello and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I think you'll hopefully find today's podcast valuable. I wanted to share an experience that happened shortly after my husband came out. He had not told very many people about his same-sex attraction, but a few people knew. And the wife of one of his friends called me and was talking to me. And she said, she was telling me about their conversation later because she had just found out and she was still reeling a little bit from the information. And anyway, she called me and was, I think, trying to be reassuring. But as she told me about their conversation, she said that her husband had said to her the night before, I'm inserting a name, "Don't worry, Susie, I find you so attractive." And there seemed to be this implication that because my husband experienced same-sex attraction, he couldn't possibly find me attractive. And it was a really hurtful comment to me. I know she didn't mean to be hurtful, but it did hurt my feelings. And so I sat with that, really tried to figure out what it was about this that really bothered me. And what I started to realize was that I really cared about my husband being attracted to me. I didn't want him just to be tolerating me or living with me to have our children or to be something to hide or be a means of portraying a straight life that wasn't true. I wanted a husband who was genuinely attracted to me. And so I started looking into attraction and I dove into what things drive attraction. And I started to find that there were some things that I had no idea impacted desirability and attraction. So I thought it would be useful to tell you just a few of those things today. So if you want your husband to desire you and not just to be with you or tolerate you, hopefully these are some things that can help you understand better how to facilitate attraction in your marriage and desirability within yourself. I will state this from the get-go because I think this is important. You cannot control if someone else is attracted to you. It's not possible. What you can control is if you're living within the principles that facilitate desirability and see what happens. So much of this is an experiment. Marriage is a big experiment. And so to some degree, you're experimenting upon principles and seeing which ones stick. But that's going to require time because as you change your behaviors, interestingly, in systems like marriage or family, there's something called homeostasis. And that means as you change, your partner tries to push you back to the way you were. We're used to a system a certain way, and they will try to get you back to the quote, normal you. There's nothing wrong with that. People kind of freak out because they're like, my partner's not responding. View it as kind of they're testing you. They're testing you to see how serious you are about change, to see if you're going to allow their behaviors to impact yours. And when you hold on to yourself and get past those hurdles, often things start to shift, but it takes some real effort. So let's dive in. Desire killer number one is dependence or reliance. A lot of people come into my office thinking that they just want to be closer to their partner and they feel like a disconnect. And I will tell you, it is very rare that I find that that is the actual problem. Usually what is killing my clients and their relationship is that they are too close. And you might say, no, not me and my spouse. Like we don't spend time together. We don't do things or have dates or things like that. It's not the kind of closeness I'm talking to. What I'm talking about is they are dependent on each other for a reinforcement of them to feel good about them. And so when they are dependent on the other person, they show up in kind of a needy way. So what they don't realize is that they are often dependent upon their spouse for their feelings of self-worth. And that is the kind of closeness and connection. It's like emotional superglue that I see that is binding them together. So it's a closeness that is hurtful, not helpful. And they're dependent upon the other person for making them feel good about themselves or reliant on them for validation of who they are. Now, that can show up in a lot of different ways. I'm not going to get into that today, but if there's a dependency there, it's likely hurting your desirability and your attractiveness. So the opposite of that in my mind is differentiation. It's not hyper independence where you're just, I don't even need you. I don't need anybody. That's just another form of dependence, actually. I can't get too close to you because if I do, I might get hurt. And it's not dependence where it's like, I need you here all the time. I just need you to give me more, to tell me how pretty I am, to reinforce me in these ways. So differentiation means that essentially I am able to stand on my own 2 feet, to belong to myself, to be myself, even when I am in connection with someone else. And I'm also able to take them into consideration. Okay, but I am taking both of us into consideration. We are independent entities acting on our own. We have our own worlds, and we are functioning, and we are soothing ourselves and also aware of the other, but we're not hyper aware. We're not worried all the time about what the other person is thinking or feeling. So that's number 1. Desire killer number 2 is accommodation. Now, this may not seem real to you right now, but let me try to explain what I mean. Often a lot of us learn love as an accommodation framework. So we learn that if you love someone, you're going to give yourself up to them. You're going to essentially do what they want. And here's the problem with that. I'm not saying that you disregard them at all, okay? But what I'm saying is you have to have some healthy self-respect. So I'm going to give you just a little harmless example. My daughter found herself every day telling her friend to get me a drink, get me this, get me that at her high school. She was just really demanding of this friend. And her friend would do it. Every time she would get her a drink, she would do things for her. And one day when my daughter said, hey, so-and-so, get me a drink, she looked at my daughter and said, no. And the impact on my daughter was not that she was frustrated with this person. What happened to my daughter was she leveled up in respect for this person. Her inner dialogue was, now I can respect you. So accommodation often actually creates a dynamic where it kills self-respect. And so we have difficulty respecting ourselves, but our partner also has difficulty respecting us when we just accommodate and try to get along. And sometimes they might, like, my daughter was a little frustrated, like she couldn't get her way anymore, but essentially it put the ball in her court so that she could take care of what she needed to take care of, which was herself. And it freed up her friend to actually not do things that made her not like my daughter. Because in reality, when we keep doing these acts for someone and there's no sense of appreciation and maybe it's not reciprocated in some way, often that really builds resentment. So it doesn't feel very loving and it is not conducive to attraction. That's desire killer number 2. Desire killer, a one up, one down dynamic. So what that means is someone is asserting themselves and someone is accommodating. So this ties in with number 2 very well. But if there's a one up, one down dynamic where one person is kind of taking charge and the other person is subservient to in some way, that kills desire. It's more of a parent-child dynamic than an equal to dynamic, than a partnership. And so if you think about that, I make this joke with my clients all the time, but if you have a parent-child dynamic, no one wants to have sex with their dad or with their mom, okay? So if you want to facilitate attraction and desire in a relationship, you need to get to a position of equality where essentially you're partners and you're looking at each other eye to eye. Often what happens is when we sense that someone is trying to get up on us a little bit and like be in charge, there might be a rebellion, and then we fight for the top and it becomes this like vying for position. So essentially you have to find kind of the humanness in you and where you have maybe behaved in ways that are similar to that, equal but opposite, and work with that. And we will get into that in other episodes, but that dynamic kills attraction, kills desire. Desire killer number 4. This goes hand in hand with differentiation, but too much closeness and connection is smothering. It smothers a flame. If you want the flame of desire to grow, then you have to have space and air. So what that looks like is that I have my life. It's centered around things that aren't my partner, and it includes my partner, but there's enough distance and space so that they can look and say, wow, those are really cool things my spouse is doing, and vice versa. So that essentially we're not centered around each other all the time. We have some distance and space to actually appreciate and have an outside perspective of who our partner is, what they're good at. That really helps us to appreciate them, find new appreciation for them. And if we're too close, it can feel smothering. And so it's tricky because often what facilitates desire is the opposite of what facilitates really close friendships. The tricky part about monogamy is that what we want is closeness and connection and warmth and friendship and security, but those things sometimes run counter to creating desire and attraction. So to some degree, we have to facilitate security, a sense of security, of being able to self-validate within ourselves. So we're not looking to our partner to do that if we want to cultivate a relationship conducive to desire. At the end of the day, freedom is very, very important. People really hate being controlled, being forced, or feeling like they have to do something. And if we play out roles where we are trying to control another person, or we are allowing ourselves to be controlled, it is counterproductive to a place where we can actually desire someone. Feeling forced to be with them or tolerating them is very different than desiring them. So take a moment and just think about, what am I doing that tries to control my partner instead of facilitating change in myself? And look at what you might be doing in those dynamics that you can change and focus on that. What are the areas where you might be pressuring that are causing resistance in them? What if you allowed full freedom and just managed your reactions to what was going on? What might show up? What might you discover about your own weakness when you allow your partner to just be who they are? That's where you need to work. You are capable of becoming far more attractive without ever setting foot in a gym or doing your hair or makeup or all of those things. Of course, those things sometimes matter. Taking care of our appearance matters. But these factors are far more detrimental in relationships than what you wear or your appearance. So pick an area, work on it. Email me your questions or thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Heidi at complexcouplescoaching.com. And let me know what you're interested in hearing more about. If there's topics here that you are confused about, please email me. I would love to speak to the things that you need. And in conclusion to this episode, I just wanted to remind you that no matter where you are on your journey right now, you matter. You are valuable, and that has nothing to do with anything you did today or didn't do. It's just because you're human and you breathe, just like me. You matter. The people around you matter. Hold on to that today as you go forward, and I'll look forward to talking with you next time on the Complex Couples Podcast.